Thank you for the confirmation. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday. It is going to be a high of 40 degrees today, I was informed. So that's it's above freezing. We're getting there. Mostly today, I'm hoping to kind of really like flesh out this whole idea of working with P5 on the web server and how your pages will need to look and or function, you know. So I know a couple of people emailed me some questions. I'm hoping to just kind of address all those questions in what I say. But if there are any, additional questions, please bring it on. I mean, that's why we're here, is to sort of make sure that everybody, learns, gets what's happening. So that is why we're here. So I have a couple of things for you today. I have some new examples using P5 on the web in our 309 web space. I have a couple of examples that are specifically related to sound. And then I also have, it looks like 3 outside links for tutorials and sort of just general kind of explainers on how to do some of the things that y'all have been asking about. So I'll go through those at kind of in depth. And we'll be going through all the examples today for sure. So, okay, so I think we can start with the code examples. So the first 2 code examples are on our Art 309 web space. I went ahead and, hello. I went ahead and dressed up the main page a little bit. I put a little P5 background in there. I also put links to all of your web pages. So it looks like Timothy has one posted here. I saw that Anjali had one posted. So basically, if you want to look and see what other people are doing, you should be able to access these links. Also, if I have in the future, at any time in the future, of course, I'm putting these on the Canvas page that says code examples. But if I have any examples that are specifically for sort of the web server, I'm going to put them on this page as well. So are y'all ready to get started? Woo! So yesterday, being yesterday, I mean Thursday, I believe, because time doesn't pass when I don't see you all. It's that funny thing about object permanence. So I think it was last session, basically, we sort of really quickly kind of did the bare bones version of how to get a website, how to get a web page with P5 on it. So today we're going to do that, but we're also going to do it in a slightly more complex way and in a way that will afford you more creative options in the future. Okay? All ready? Okay. So I'm going to look at this basic Canvas example first. And this basic Canvas example is, guess what? It's one of the examples that we probably already have seen, maybe or a variation of it. And it is functioning, as you can see, in an HTML page. Now, for these 2 examples that are specifically addressing like how to kind of get your P5 stuff on the server, I went ahead and made it so you can download a zip. And when you download the zip, you will download the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript file, because all 3 of those things are really like working together to make the P5 happen. Okay. So that being said, I've got this, which is really just kind of basically how to, it sounds really complicated, but it's kind of not. Basically, this example shows you how to import a P5 sketch and then put it somewhere on the window, inside the web window. So you basically will be, just sneak peek, we'll be using the div tag to sort of move this object around the page. Okay? Great. And then the second thing is using a basic canvas as a background. And so I put some placeholder text in here just to illustrate that indeed this is running behind something. It's just a different way of doing things. You might find that you want to do it, and it's something that you can do with P5. So I thought I would show you how. Once again, you can download a zip. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the basic canvas version. And you'll find this. I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to show you what my web root looks like right now. And the web root folder is just basically like it could be called anything. It doesn't have to be called web root, but it's basically one folder that is mirroring what's on the server. Okay. So does it have to exactly mirror the server? No, but if you want it to work like your local copy, then probably yes. So I'll show you what I mean. So let's go ahead and I'll click on the index.html file here. So when I double click this and open it up in my browser, you can see here that in the file address bar, it is pointing to file users Meg Mitchell desktop art309 web root index.html. So that's your first sort of like clue that this what we're looking at right now is your local copy. We can look at the exact same thing on the server, and it comes out with an address of art309.art.wis.edu. Okay, some of this is review, I know that, but I think it's just kind of critical. So, okay, so that's great. So we opened up a local copy of the index page, and it seems to be working in an interesting way. You can see also that I have two subfolders in the directory. I put a subfolder in for basic canvas, which happens to be that basic canvas example, right? So I wanted that to contain those 3 files. And then I also put in a subfolder for canvas as background, which is just that one sort of page. This method of making subfolders is smart. It's good. It's smart. You should do it. Why do I say you should do it? Because nothing's worse than like a folder with like 100 things in it, and it just gets really unwieldy. And yeah, so I would advise you to construct a folder structure within your sort of server folder thing. I also have another folder for an example that I haven't finished yet. And then you can see I also have, these zip files just kind of laying around. They're just laying around in the folder. And that's okay. I mean, until it gets so cluttered up that I can't tell what's up. But basically right now, what I'm using in the web root folder is the index.html file, the sketch.js, and the styles.css. Now, if I jump into Sublime really quickly, you can see that I opened up the web root folder in Sublime. And one of the cool things about Sublime is that it actually has a limited file browser, which if you're working with web stuff and stuff that has to go in folders can be super useful. I believe that NoteTab++ also has this feature where you can kind of navigate through the folders. Now, let's get started with the basic canvas example. Okay, so I'm really going to be limiting myself to the basic canvas folder. I'm just going to kind of walk you through the HTML and the CSS. And I would like to say something about the CSS at one point, and maybe it's something that I'll do in the future. The brilliance of the cascading style sheet is basically cascading style sheets were invented to get layout and presentation information out of your HTML and to reduce duplication of code. Right now, you might notice that I have a separate CSS file in every folder. I think I did that because there are differences to the CSS files. But theoretically, if I kind of thought it through, I could have one CSS file for my entire site and just link to it from the other pages. Maybe we'll talk about that like next week or next class, because I didn't do it basically. So it's not that important, but it's just one of those things that it does pain me a little bit to see so many CSS files. So we've got a couple of things going on in the HTML. The HTML is pretty much exactly like the template that I gave you last week. It's got a couple of additions, and I'm just going to start with the sort of first one and go down the list. So the first addition is what I've highlighted here. It's 3 link tags that basically form a Google font call. And if you haven't noticed, the course website now has a non-ridiculous font. Oh, look at that non-ridiculous font. It is not Arial. No, it is not Times New Roman. I think it's called, what is it called? Rubik. Anyway, Google Fonts is literally, I think, like one of the best things to ever happen to web design. So I will very quickly show you how to pull a Google font. So you will definitely see them in pretty much all of my pages. So you Google Fonts and then go to Browse Fonts. And you can basically find any font. This one's nice. It's almost like Futura. And then it takes you to kind of a page just for the font. And you want to look at all of the different variants. So there's like probably, some of them have dozens of styles. I'm going to go ahead and suggest, for this case, maybe like, I'm going to select a bold and medium, a regular italic, and a regular. And that's enough. I mean, that's enough for me. You could select the whole family if you want, but there is, I usually will hand pick the fonts that I actually want, because your page load time can go crazy long if you try to load the whole family. So, okay, so then you basically come over here, and it's then just generating a chunk of code right here. Just these 3 link tags, and you just cut and paste those right into your HTML. So I'll go ahead and change this font up just to kind of show you how it's done. So I'm copying those 3 link tags. And then I also need to go into my styles, my style sheet. And so the magic place to change your style sheet is this font family tag. So you can find it down here. And in this case, I really only want Poppins because I'm trying to change it from Rubik to Poppins. So you take this font family argument, selector is the technical term, and then just pop it in there. And so I should be able to save both of these now. And now I just was about to preview this on the server because I'm a little broke in the head. So definitely make sure that you're previewing the local copy in this case. So let me go ahead and find it in the Finder, double click it, and voila, we have a new and fascinating font. So I think that fonts are one of those things that just, particularly on the web, I feel like looking at Arial or Times New Roman just like hurts my soul a little bit because it's 2022, you know? So, okay, so the font thing is taken care of. And so it's in those two spots. Now, moving down, there's really nothing that we've changed here from the example that I gave you, except, I'll get to that. Also, I guess I want to just point out that we do have this link to the styles.css sheet. What happens if we break this and get rid of the style sheet? Well, I will tell you, it will make our page like party like it's 1994. So basically, let's go ahead and just do that. I'm going to drag styles.css out of the folder. And let's see where that gets us. This is what it looks like when your page does not have a style sheet. You know, I mean, I guess if you're like making some information archive and you have like really strong opinions about accessibility, I can see this actually being okay, but that's not our sort of situation here. It is good to know what a page without a CSS sheet looks like, because it's good to, you know, for troubleshooting if you lose your CSS or you lose access to it. So definitely you're going to get everything's left justified, white background, Times New Roman, you know, basic. Okay, so I'm going to put that style sheet back because it's hurting my soul. And so I'm just going to double check real quickly that everything's kosher. Oh, thank you. Okay. Now, there are a couple of things that we need to talk about here as well. So let's just talk a little bit. And again, this is maybe review for some of us, but I think it's important for us to kind of know this stuff. The body portion of the HTML is where you put everything that you want to appear in the window of the web browser. So if you have like some great paragraph and like, let's say this, maybe this H1 heading right here, if I put this heading in front of the body tag, I'm breaking it, by the way. Well, that's interesting. So it did kind of work, but it's not supposed to work. That shouldn't work. And in general, it's just bad. So don't do it. Respect the body tag. So yeah, in general, everything that is appearing within the window should go within the body of the document. We also have these two script lines in most of our code, in most of our HTML. So this first script marker, script tag, is basically downloading the library for P5 to the client. Now, in this case, my computer is the client. But when you, Elise, look at the web page on your computer, you're the client, and your computer is the client. So, okay, so, and then we've got our specific sketch, okay? So this is, again, like a little bit of review from last week. Now, what are we doing here with this div tag? Well, I'll tell you. So the div tag is basically giving us kind of a conceptual wrapper to attach style information to the sketch. And in this case, that stuff are things like positioning information, which is really critical, usually. You could probably apply styles to the border of the window as well if you wanted to, the sketch window. But in this case, we're actually pretty much just using this sketch one to move things around. Now you can see I use the ID selector here. There are two types of IDs, identification sort of things in HTML. There's ID and there's class. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but the syntax is different for each of them. So if you're an experienced HTML person and you like to use the class attribute, I don't care. There's no difference. So let's go into the CSS and sort of see what's going on here. So we made this thing called sketch one, and because sketch one is an ID attribute, it has in it, it's denoted by a pound symbol here. If this were, just hypothetically, if this were a class, if it was class equals sketch one, it would have a dot operator, okay? But because it is indeed an ID, we're going with the pound operator here. And you can probably see, like, I've just gone ahead and given it a margin left of 200 pixels and a margin top of 0 pixels. So there's not like a whole lot of style information that I attached to it, but that margin left is really important. I mean, that's what makes it look like it's not just kind of defaulted out. So there's one more thing that we have to kind of talk about as far as the sketch itself goes. So there's two little lines of code in here that are going to be slightly different from what you specify in the P5 editor. And so the first is to create a variable called canvas. And then we're using the create canvas function as we normally would. But this is the really critical part. So we're assigning sketch one to the canvas. And that's kind of like the glue that sticks the CSS to the HTML to the JavaScript. Okay? Critical. It's that one little line. Now let's go back a little bit to the CSS. You are more than welcome for this project to, make your own CSS, find a template, whatever. I mean, there's lots of ways to get interesting CSS. If you're looking at this particular CSS, let me just kind of go through it with you so you know what's up. Basically, this particular style block is when you use the comma operator, you're applying the style block to both tags. So it looks like it's got a width and a height of 100%. That's generally just good practice. I mean, it does happen to, I think, be the default, but sometimes it's a good idea to kind of say that stuff explicitly. Usually at the page level, which is right now we're at the page level, I don't have any margins or borders. I turn all that stuff off. And then here, overflow hidden, that's kind of a choice, and you might want to revisit that choice depending on what your sort of circumstances are. Also, this display block, 98% of the time I work with block display. Basically what that means is that if you have a chunk of HTML and then you put another chunk after it, that it's going to work like a document. So it's going to put whatever you put after the HTML in the code, it's going to show up in the window after that. So yeah, I think that's generally how most people think of it. So under the body tag, we've got a couple of special things just for the body tag. the body tag is a good place for you to assign your background color. So if anybody wants to get rid of that icky yellow background color that I gave you, that would be the place to do it, right here. And then of course you would also set a font family for the page. Pretty much everything else on here is pretty minimal and pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to go ahead and explain the background part when we get to doing the background. But yeah, you know, if I wanted to come up with more sort of qualifiers for the sketch object, I certainly could. So, okay, so that's basically our sort of basic Canvas example in a nutshell. And it's just like the old example, except we're adding this div. We're adding in these lines in the JS that are basically assigning the canvas to a div. And then in the style sheet, we're taking that div and we're giving it a little bit of positioning information. Okay. Awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look at the canvas as background example. So here, it's pretty much the same sort of situation, except there are some very slight differences. So here in the JS, I just used the qualifier my background, and of course it's full screen in this case. So if you want a full screen P5 in the window, this is how you do it. You use the window width and the window height to define the parameters of your sketch. I also kind of attached it to a div ID here called my background, also in the JS. And then in the styles, you can see there's some stuff that happens here. The background is going, there are 3 lines here that make it a slightly more complicated positioning than with the margin left, right? So with the margin left, we're basically just saying, hey, whatever you're inside of, little JavaScript canvas, you want to be 200 pixels inside of that. This is a little bit more complicated. So here, we're first assigning a positioning method, which fixed it for something like this is definitely what you would want. And then we're assigning a top left coordinate. So if I make this 500, we're going to see, hopefully, I think I have to get to my window here. Did I save it? I'm just trying to break it, and it's not. Oh, no. That was user error. Excuse me. So I'm just having to change a couple of things because I tamper-proofed it pretty well. Okay, well, it's not wanting to kind of do what I'm asked, what I don't technically want it to do, so I'm gonna just leave it alone. But basically, I think we'd have to change some of the body parameters. And then I also think because we can't really move it. I was trying to move it to the middle of the screen, but I don't think it's going to do that because it's generating to fill the screen. So that doesn't, like, I was kind of telling it to do two things at once that were not possible. So in any event, I mean, this is what we want to see. Now, there's one other really important piece to this background thing, and that is still in this style selector. We are moving it to -10 on the Z index. What? So what that means is that, just to like blow your mind a little, CSS actually supports layers. And you can have tons of HTML objects that are positioned in the same space and layer them up. And in this case, we're basically just telling the background to be in the background by giving it a negative Z value. So there's that. That's important. By the way, just a quick like little CSS syntax. I mean, I'm sure you probably have already caught on to this, but the sort of generic CSS syntax is it's your selector and then a colon and then the value and then a semicolon, and then you need to separate, bracket everything with the you know, curly braces. Okay, go ahead and get rid of this. There's my daily nag. All right, so I didn't break it too much. Okay, so sort of like wrapping this up, maybe I will also review putting stuff on the web server, since it looks like I went ahead and changed a font on this basic canvas. So I think I'll go ahead and change that in the server. So let's see, let me double check that I have what I want on here. Oh, gracious, let me fix that real quickly. That's better. Okay, so that's better. And I've got my little different font so we can tell that something different will happen. Sometimes, especially when you're debugging web stuff, there's another really powerful tool for debugging anything in the browser window, and that is right-clicking the page and going to inspect. You can basically navigate through the page in detail, and it's a gold mine of errors. In fact, if you have an error that your sketch.js is generating, you should be able to see it in the console, which is this tab right here. So if you were putting things out in your p5.js, which it looks like we're putting out some kind of a numerical value, it would just be there. So you can still get to it, and it's still available for debugging. That's like super, super important, I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get this stuff on the server. So I have to connect to the VPN because I'm on my laptop. Okay, so I'm connected. So I'm going to go ahead and quick connect out of here. And I have like a little extra directory in my account because I'm me. So basically, within FileZilla, if you're using a GUI related SFTP client, which you certainly don't have to, but most people probably are. So I can just take this whole canvas as background folder and just drag it and refresh the page. I mean, that's probably the most straightforward way to do it. You might come up with you might come up with any kind of permissions errors. I navigated that with tech support yesterday. I think they adjusted the permissions to create folders. So hopefully that won't be an issue. But if it is, just email me and I'll send a ticket in. Okay, so let's go ahead and check the page. So this is our old page, and oh, new page. Oh, that's because that's not the one I changed. Sorry. I was just checking to see if you were paying attention. Basic canvas is actually what I wanted to do. Okay, that is definitely not the same font. Everybody agree? Okay, this happened to me yesterday. So no, they're definitely not the same font. So let me just double check everything. Okay, so it looks like it should be. So one of the issues here is that this actually might not be a problem with the server, and it might not even be a problem with me. This might actually be, it's kind of a common problem that you have when you're working on networks. It might be a situation where our browser, like the browser cache, is basically not, not allowing me to delete this stuff. So I think I have to go into, clear browsing data, blah, blah, blah. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna clear my browser cache, which is something that if you all are having this problem of like, oh my God, I just uploaded this to the server, like, why isn't it showing me what I just did? This is probably the first thing I would do. Ha! So that was score one for my partner, I guess. I was having trouble with this last night, and it was like, I kept refreshing this course website, and I was like, dude, why isn't this updating on the server? It's so frustrating. And of course, it didn't have anything to do with that. So he suggested that it might be the cache. So anyway, if you're having trouble with that, that's how to fix it. Does anybody have any like quick question? Well, not quick or long questions about all this sort of stuff. I want to show you some examples of sound, and we're going to get a little loud and crazy in here. Any questions? Did I address most of your questions? Okay, okay. We'll talk. So, okay. All right, sounds fun. So then let's see. Okay, so let's jump back into the code examples. I put together a couple of sound examples because I think sound is one of the things that you can really do well playing with in P5. So I have a simple mic input, and this is kind of underwhelming, but it does exactly what you need it to do. And so the idea is that this little piece of code gives you a variable called mic level that you can then attach to anything you want. So I'm going to go ahead and just tap to start, and you can see it's not that responsive, but it does respond. So if we wanted to make it a little more responsive, we could probably just, adjust the math here a little bit. But yeah, you're basically using the get level function that comes along with the sound library. And then there's also this, well, so you're creating a variable called mic, right? And then you're also using the P5 audio in object. And then here you have to start the mic, and then it's basically just running for the entire sketch. So that's one way to deal with sound, is to use a microphone. The other way is to play a file. And then so to sort of load a sound in, you're basically, you're basically loading in this doorbell sound. It's in the assets folder. If you were doing this online or putting it on the server, you would just need to, like, let's say this is your project folder, you would need to have a folder inside of this called assets in order for it to work. And then in this case, it's just attaching it to a mouse press. So the one that I came up with for y'all that's kind of like putting both of these, at least one of these things into practice, is the sort of fairly simple visualizer. So I'm using, first thing is we're using a little bit of Perlin noise to just make it look cool. So it's not sort of like completely flat. We're using the mic object from the P5 audio in, just like in the mic example. And then we're using that volume. We're making a variable called volume, and we're just basically using it to map to the color spectrum, and also then to map to sort of the scale of the window. So what does it do? It does this. Yeah, it definitely does different things according to the, yeah. Yeah, so it's not making stuff sound, that's sound responsive. It's not, on the spectrum of things you can do, it's not super hard because it's basically just like a variable that is a range of numbers, right? So I feel like everybody in this room kind of already knows how to deal with that kind of data. So yeah, I would definitely encourage y'all to work with sound, and hopefully this will just give you some inspiration for, how to deal with it. Hello. So wanted to answer a couple of questions about the project upcoming. So the upcoming project, you have a kind of mini project, and that mini project is basically like, prove to me and yourself that you know how to use the server. Really, I'm not looking for sort of anything fantastic, you know, amazing. If you want to use it as like maybe a sketch for your real web project, then sure. I mean, that seems like a good use of time to me. But I am really just invested in everyone's kind of succeeding in this project. And so I really just want to make sure that we don't have any like last minute, like, oh my God, I can't connect to the web server things, because that would be bad. So that's really what that's about. As far as the, you know, sort of web project, I think I, you know, made this, I think I talked about this in the assignment sheet, that I wanted you to deal with like one sort of special topic, whether it's like 3D or sound or webcams or whatever, you know, just kind of come up with like a direction basically and make it into a project. I wanted to, sorry, I know this is kind of a lot. I wanted to also fill you in on some of these examples and tutorials that I posted. So if you, I'll start with this one, really great tutorial on HTML and CSS with P5. If you are new to HTML and CSS, this, this tutorial is for you. I think that it pretty much like goes through some of the, you know, just basics of how these three things kind of interact. And so I think it will be really useful. It's also written by somebody that I really like. Okay, so, and then we have another tutorial here on positioning the canvas with P5. That might actually be pretty much covered in what I've already done. But it's just got, you know, it's in more detail, it's nicely organized, and yeah, it's actually has some techniques that I didn't cover, like centering and some other things. So yeah, it's got some stuff that I didn't talk about. I can't talk about everything, you know. So, and then lastly, there is a tutorial on how to have 2 sketches on 1 page. And it turns out that it's pretty hard. I guess it depends on how complicated your sketches are and why you would want 2 sketches on 1 page. For me, like, knowing that you can full screen the sketches sort of then makes me wonder, like, well, why wouldn't you just come up with 2 areas of the window in the same sketch, you know? But it just, yeah, so anyway, I mean, it's super interesting. It's definitely doable. It's just not maybe something that, you know, I think if you're a beginner, I probably wouldn't do it because it's a little hard. So, okay, so there's that. Let's see, let me check out for just 1 second here. Oh, I don't have my own page up right now. Any other sort of questions or concerns about the HTML stuff? Yeah.
Website itself.
Yeah, no, I need to do that myself because I wasn't really like. Yep. Right. Yeah. So I mean, right. So here, for example, I could just take this file web examples. I kind of rolled that into the main page, so I can just delete it. And it's, yeah, and it's gone. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I try when I'm working in this format. I mean, when I'm doing like a big project, I usually work with Git, which is just a different way of doing version control and kind of getting things onto. You push and pull from the server, and it's a lot more complicated. But if you're doing something like this, I think it's in your best interest that the server mirrors the local drive as best you can. Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So everyone, we had a really good question about subfolders. So yeah, let me take a second to address that. So as I said before, we have the canvas as background.html and basic canvas.html inside two subfolders. And so what that looks like is that then in our main index page, you can see I have these two list items on the page, which this actually corresponds to, let's see, this corresponds to these two links, basically. Those are here. And you can see I'm basically have to go into the folder and then make that slash and then go for the file. I can't just go for the file because it has to, you know, has to know to go into the folder. Now, I'll show you how to do the exact opposite, which would be useful, I think. So here I'm going inside a folder. So I'm in the sort of root level and I want to go into a folder. In the basic canvas example, I could set up like a so here I'm going to use a technique sometimes called rooting, which is // and then that will take me up one folder because right now I'm writing on basic canvas.html, which is inside a folder called basic canvas. So in order for me to link to the index.html page, like the site, the home site, I have to use that // and that makes it go one folder up. Yeah. Okay, so full disclosure, I am having a super busy day tomorrow. I'm hosting a candidate for, this is like a holdover from my days of administration. So I'm hosting the job candidate for our ceramics professor position. So I think I put down on the lesson plan for tomorrow that I would show you all how to do data visualization. And I think I can, I'm pretty sure I can do it, but like there's a remote possibility that I'm just gonna throw up my hands and be like, nah. And so if I don't get to it in class on Thursday, I will definitely do it the following Tuesday. And that's basically just like, how do you take a data file, like something from Excel, right? Like a comma separated value list of a bunch of numbers and make a graph out of it, right? And then how do we then do that in the context of P5 on the server? So I'm hoping I'll have time to kind of like roll that up for you, but it might be not until Tuesday. In which case we could spend Thursday having a work day and maybe also today and Thursday, I also have good news. The laser cutter has been fixed. Yeah, so I hear. So if anyone wants to give it a chance. Yes, both of them, allegedly. Yeah, I know. I'm like, whoa, don't get too crazy. So that's pretty much all the news I have. Anybody else have anything that they want to add? Okay, all right. I'm going to stop sharing, Anjali. Bye.